Chapter 10. I'm sure you can understand that I wanted peace in the world at that particular time. A newly married man has better things to do than to dash off to curb the belligerences of others. Unfortunately, it was no more than a couple of years after Peladra and I were married when the Aelorn clan wars broke out. Belgarath summoned the twins and me to his tower as soon as word of that particular idiocy reached us. You must go there, he told us in a tone that didn't encourage disagreement. Didn't encourage disagreement. Our master seldom commanded us, so we paid rather close attention to him when he did. It is essential that the current royal house of Eloria remain in power. One will descend from that line who will be vital to our interests. I wasn't too thrilled at the prospect of leaving Peladra behind, but I certainly wasn't going to take her into the middle of a war. Wilt thou look after my wife, master? I asked him. It was a foolish question, of course. Naturally, he'd look after her, but I wanted him to understand my reluctance to go to Eloria and my reasons for it. She will be safe with me, he assured me. Safe, perhaps, but not happy about being left behind. She argued with me about it at first. Excuse me. But I led her to believe that it was Alder's command, which wasn't exactly a lie, was it? I won't be all that long, I promised her. Don't be, she replied. One would have you understand that one is discontented about this. Anyway, the twins and I left the Vale and started north. The first thing the next morning, when we reached the cottage where I'd met Peladra, the she-wolf was waiting for us. The twins were somewhat surprised, but I don't think I really was. Another of those errands, she asked me. Yes, I replied flatly, and what does that require company? Your requirements are none of my concern, she told me, her tone just as flat as mine. I will go along with you, whether you like it or not. As you wish, I surrendered. I learned a long time ago just how useless it was to give her orders. And so we were four when we reached the southern border of Eloria. Excuse me. And began looking for Balar. I think he was avoiding us, though, because we weren't able to find him. He could have stopped the clan wars at any time, of course, but Balar had a stubborn streak in him that was at least a mile wide. He absolutely would not take sides when his Aelorns started bickering with each other. Even-handedness is probably a good trait in a god. But this was ridiculous. We finally gave up our search for him and went on to the mouth of the river that bears our master's name and looked across. Looked out across what has come to be known as the Gulf of Cherokee. We saw ships out there, but they didn't look all that seaworthy to me. A flat bottomed scow with a squared off front end isn't my idea of a corsair that skims the waves. The twins and I talked it over and decided to change form and fly across rather than one of those leaky tubs. Excuse me. One notes that you have still not learned to fly well, the snowy owl, ghosting along at my side, observed. I get by, I told her. Fine. Excuse me. I told her, clawing at the air with my wings. I did, but not well. She always had to get in the last word, so I didn't bother trying to answer, but concentrated instead on keeping my tail feathers out of the water. After what seemed an interminable flight, we reached the crude seaport that stood on the site of what's now Val Aelorn and went looking for King Shagget's direct descendant, King Uvar Bent Beak. King Uvar Bent Beak. We found him splitting wood in the stump-dotted clearing outside his log home. Ranvord the Fourth, the then current emperor of Tolidra. Ranvord the Fourth, the then current emperor of Tolnedra, lived in a palace. Uvar Bentbeak ruled an empire at least a dozen times the size of Tolnedra, but he lived in a long shack with a leaky roof. Uvar Bent Beak ruled an empire at least a dozen times the size of Tolnedra, but he lived in a log shack with a leaky roof. I don't think it ever occurred to him to order one of his thralls